欧洲主权债务危机日益升高，欧洲领袖却迟迟拿不出具体行动，令市场信心崩溃。欧洲银行爆发系统性风险的疑虑逐渐升温。
For confidence to return, we need to fix the sovereign debt problem, which can only be done through a coherent package. And we must therefore urgently strengthen the banks, because in fact those two issues, the sovereign contagion and the banks, are now, whether we like it or not, linked.
为强化银行体质、厘清投资人疑虑，欧盟当局开出的药方是银行业全面进行资金重组。同时，欧洲银行监管局也开始重新检视7月银行压力测试的结果。这一回检验标准将更严格，和3个月前测试最大的差异在于，本次测试将把银行持有的希腊等国主权债按市值计算。 新的测试结果将赶在10月23号欧洲领袖峰会前出炉。消息指出，欧洲银行监管局同时建议暂时将银行核心资本适足率提高至9%，高于7月的压力测试5%的门槛，以确保银行有足够资本可弥补主权债造成的亏损。 分析师预估，受检的90家欧洲大型银行中，恐怕有66家无法通过第2波压力测试。可以想见，标准提高的结果就是各银行必须迅速设法筹资。预料欧洲各大银行的资金缺口将介于2000到3000亿欧元之谱。根据彭博社报道，苏格兰皇家银行、德意志银行以及法国巴黎银行等名号响叮当的大银行资金缺口可能最大。
Banks that do not have the required capital should present. And then implement plans to have it in place as swiftly as possible. And until they have done so, they should be prevented from paying out dividends and bonuses by the national supervisors. Banks should use private sources of capital first. If necessary, the national governments should provide support as a next step. And as a last resort, drawing on a loan granted from the EFSF.
但这体药方对银行来说实在难以下咽。消息一传出，欧洲各银行大为反弹。德意志银行执行长艾克曼直言，欧盟这些要求恐怕会适得其反，使银行不愿对其他银行或企业放款，造成信用紧缩，反而引发欧洲领导人正极力避免的金融危机。欧洲银行承受的压力还不止如此。原本在7月21号针对希腊第2波纾困所达成的协议中，银行等债权人同意将持有的希腊债券减记21%，但目前各国政府正对银行施压，要求他们将减记幅度提高到50%到60%。事实上，在欧洲债务危机这把火燃烧下，比利时最大银行已经倒下。由比利时和法国合资的德克夏银行成为欧债危机以来第1家接受政府纾困的大型银行。
Ce que nous ne pouvions prévoir à ce moment-là, c'est que après la crise de 2008, il y aurait, si vous voulez, une crise dans la crise, et plus particulièrement une crise du souverain, comme on l'appelle, et il était évident que cette crise-là touchait en plein Dexia, puisque Dexia était spécialisé justement dans le financement des autorités publiques.
在2008年金融危机期间，德克夏已经接受过比法两国政府81亿美元的纾困金，当年德克夏也是因此才渡过难关。而值得注意的是，在7月的银行压力测试中，德克夏安全过关，但随后该行营运急剧恶化，透露出欧洲银行体质堪虑。
Lloyds were down 5.4%, the Royal Bank of Scotland were down 6.3%, and the reason, very simple, Fitch has downgraded the state-backed banks. Even though they are backed by the UK government, there is a feeling they will now need more money.
继德克夏之后，奥地利银行第一储蓄银行也发布获利预警，预料今年净亏损7至8亿欧元，出乎外界意料之外。因为该行原本预计净利近9亿欧元，主要也是受到希腊等主权债破险等因素拖累。 未来几周，欧洲银行陆续公布财报时，欧债对于欧洲银行的负面冲击将会更加明确。
而欧洲呢，已经了解到整个欧盟呢，欧元区国家了解到整个欧洲银行所面临的问题，所以准备了我们刚刚看到17国一一的全部批准，这是其实非常困难的事情，每一个国家通通都要同意，那么每一个国家都在对抗它的民意，最后让人类可能 可以说是避开了所谓的2次的衰退。对许多人来讲，你坐在家里头，并不知道地雷随时一颗原子弹，这样经济形态的原子弹将在你的身旁直接爆发。而就在上个礼拜，我们度过了这一场风暴。那么接下来呢，就看整个 IMF 是不是有足够的钱。IMF 现在最希望的就是希望不只是美国再出钱，希望新兴国家出钱。让我们来看最新的报道，在11月初的时候 ，G20 将召开高峰会议，现在召开的是财政部长的会议。11月初的时候，各国的领袖将重新的聚集，这里头这一次讨论的主要的焦点都是欧债危机，因为欧债没有处理好，全球一定会陷入2次衰退。那么目前为止呢，希望就息债金砖国家目前已经承诺将会支持提高 IMF 的资本，而且他们将直接的向 IMF 注资，就是以买这个 IMF 的特别债券的方式，而不是直接购买欧债，这样可以避免损失，放款给 IMF。而美国呢 ，Geithner 财政部长也表达，美国将通过 IMF 帮助欧洲应对这一场债务危机。按照 G20 最新的消息 ，IMF 恐怕需要增资3500亿欧元，总共1兆欧元呢才能够挽救整个欧洲，需要再增资3500亿欧元。换句话说，全世界有3兆的欧元在这个地方准备这一场人类可能避免第2次大衰退，甚至严重过2008年金融海啸的这场衰退。而这一的可能都在11月初的时候 G20 峰会的时候，这些钱都将一一的到位，来面临我们刚刚所看到的欧洲银行的系统性的危机。那我们现在接下来的问题就是，到底这样的一个危机，我们是不是真的已经避免了？看到美国上周的股市呈现出了大涨的局面，我们来看一下纽约大学经济学的教授，著名的 Rogoff 教授，还在最近发表一系列的谈话。第一个，包括希腊能够还债吗？第二个，整个德法现在所进行的银行筹组会成功吗？第三个，我们是不是已经在2次衰退当中？来听一下纽约大学经济学教授 Rogoff 的说法。
And I think Greece is going to end up paying 30 cents on the dollar unless Germany decides to pay all of that for 40 and 50 years. This is really, it's not part of a solution. You need to have restructuring in Greece, Portugal, possibly Ireland, and put a firewall everywhere else. The fact that they're still bailing out Greece means they haven't figured out what to do next. But the questions, will it go far enough? Will they be able to make enough changes? Will Chancellor Merkel be able to go as far as she needs to go, or will she only be able to go as far as public opinion lets her go? And I think there's a lot of problems. Sarkozy faces the problem that the French banks are very powerful and they don't want to acknowledge any default in Greece because that would show that they have very little capital or are bankrupt. Well, I think it's pretty clear that they'll do something that will significantly cheer up markets for a few months, but I'm very skeptical that they're anywhere near having a truly comprehensive plan that has to include, I think, a constitutional change in Europe, that has to include a fiscal union, that has to include some kind of regulatory union, and that probably needs to take a hard look at which countries can remain in this harder Eurozone. Well, I think they're all listening to them, but unfortunately they're listening to their electorate too. And as I said, you know, the debate in the public is not in the same place as among the elite. And I think they just haven't taken the tough decisions. Fundamentally, there are some countries, there are some cities in Europe that are insolvent, and it's not reasonable to think that they're going to repay their debts. There's others, like the Italian banking system, where I think it's a more traditional run. It's a liquidity problem, and you need to back them. It isn't a clear line everywhere, but they can't even seem to draw a line where it is clear. Well, they're trudging along. We're hardly in a boom here. We're in a long period of slow growth that will probably last for a very long time, especially as long as these debt problems, mortgages in the United States, sovereign debt problems in Europe are still hanging over us, and until we see them dealt with. But it's not necessarily a panic, a hysteria, a deep darker turn in the recession, in the great contraction that we're seeing. But the downside risk is materially greater than that we might have a sudden boom.